So I'm going to kick it off with a couple of questions, and I'm going to put it out to you guys. So hopefully you've got your questions at the ready. So I'm just going to kick it off. We talked a little bit with Tom about kind of his own personal health and being able to be the best possible self so he can obviously commit to the business. So do you guys have any, ways in which you kind of look after yourselves particularly that helps the business?
I know Mia's been into meditation a lot. I've tried to get into it, but it's not always that easy. But in terms of looking after ourselves, yeah, we both go to gym at different times. I know I don't look like it, but I do. And it obviously works for me a lot better than me. What else? We try to plan our time, make sure we have holidays, those sorts of things. But
yeah, I think the self-care is incredibly important, and personally I've definitely been guilty of neglecting that, and I actually really like what Tom said about your priorities, because it is so easy to put, to put everyone else first and put your business first as well. But I learnt pretty quickly, I'd say probably the last 12 months, I had a bit of a mental breakdown kind of phase where I just felt like it was just all a bit much, and I realised that I just wasn't looking after myself, and I wasn't sleeping well, and that actually just affected everything else. So I find that when you're not good, business isn't good, relationships aren't good. So I think, yeah, self-care is important, and just being mindful of that and calling it. And again, we're lucky that we've got each other, and if I'm a bit crabby or whatever, Jeff will be like, I think you should maybe just go home early today and just have a sleep in tomorrow. And so I think we're fortunate that we've got each other to kind of call it. But yeah, meditation, exercising, getting your mind off stuff. And for me, it's just, actually spending time with family and the people that I love is a really great escape.
Yeah. And Tom also touched on the fact that, some of the moments, like in particular the 90,000 that went on the website and things like that. Jeff, you talked a little bit about staff and having the right staff. Is there any moment in particular where, can you point to anything in particular where that staff member has been not right for the business? And we'll put that one up to Tom as well after that one.
Look, there's probably been a lot of times over the years. I don't really want to say too much in case they might be listening, but it's definitely like we're quite a small crew, really. We've got a lot of people ancillary to the business that come in and out, but the core crew is really key, and they all have big roles. And when we've had one or two it's never been two, it's probably been one person that just hasn't really been fitting in right. It really is like a car with a square wheel or something like that. The business it doesn't roll, and it just doesn't work. Specifics, I don't know. You might have one.
Who does the firing out of you two? Who does
Oh, that's me.
who has to wear that?
What was that?
Who has to wear that hat?
It's me.
It's you.
You kidding?
No, well, it depends. We try and do stuff.
We do it together.
We generally do it together. But I just lost my train of thought. I was just going to say something on that.
Square wheels.
Yeah, square wheels. Oh, yeah, that's right. For me, I've learnt quite quickly that if someone's not living the values of the business, like they could be really good at their job, and on paper they might be great and they may have all the right credentials, but ultimately if they're not living the values of the business, they're not a team player, and it just, like Jeff said, just doesn't fit and it doesn't work. No matter how skilled they are, if they're not living our values, and we hire and fire based on our values, because I think you can teach people skills, and you can you can send them to courses and whatever, but I think teaching values, you can't really teach. I think it's got to be in them. And so it's key for us when hiring and even firing, unfortunately.
Yeah. Cool. Tom, I'm going to come over to you for a second. So we've obviously talked a little bit about some of the hurdles and the struggles, but what's some of the moments that you've been most proud of? Obviously, these guys spoke a little bit about their proudest moments. What would be for you?
Definitely the proudest moment for me and my brother Andrew was, what we always say and we always know that our parents have done absolutely everything for us. They've given us absolutely everything we've ever wanted, even though, back then when builders, would go belly up and not be able to pay my dad when he was in business, and that's why he became a sole trader. So for us, me and Andrew looked at each other and we said one day that, we want to retire Dad and, retire him, full pay, brand new car, you're not working anymore for the rest of your life, and that was about 2 years ago. At work breakup, we went up to Dad and we said, "You don't have a job next year, mate." And he goes, "What do you mean you don't have a job? I've got to work." We said, "No more work for you. Take your car. Here's your pay, enjoy life." So he goes around in his caravan now with his partner, absolutely having a ball. He's not even 65 yet, and that's right up there. My mum works in the office. Again, I won't go into too much detail, but we're setting her up for retirement. We really look after her. We got her a car. She gets paid more than me. So that's definitely the proudest.
Good on you. Yeah, I like that one. Any other proud moments of you guys that you'd like to add to that? I've already seen a couple of instances, but
Probably the time Mia won Telstra Businesswoman of the Year was pretty big for us. I was very proud of her then, and she's obviously proud of herself. But as I said, she's come a long way. It sounds I don't want to say it like that because it sounds condescending, but she's done it herself, and she's really from where she started to where she's come to, it's been amazing. And so probably that was one of the proudest things I've ever encountered.
I'd say that moment actually floored me. I certainly didn't expect to be nominated, let alone when they called my name at that event. Think just, oh my God, I've won. People think I'm influential. What the hell? But I actually learnt that that's quite powerful, and not in a snobby way. I think more in the sense that like Jeff said earlier during our presentation, being invited into schools to speak to the next gen and kind of empower them with, I guess, just the courage and the influence to pursue their own thing, and to show that, again, you don't have to be massive or have heaps of money or whatever to make an impact and do something you love and help other people as well. So yeah, I actually really love that, and I feel really fortunate that I'm able to do that off the back of putting tampons in little tins. I just never thought it would have taken me there. So yeah.
Cool, awesome. I was having a little bit of chat with Tom before as well, and you were talking about setting processes and having to document these things to be able to scale the businesses, and obviously you're obviously giving these types of processes through MakeF to other businesses. How important is setting processes to allow your own business to grow? And can you talk a little bit like for our audiences?
I think, like we alluded to it earlier, focus is really important. So sometimes, we might set a plan, and sometimes those plans might need to change, and that's okay. But I think having something that's kind of concrete-ish, having some kind of plan that you can work off, that you could pass to anyone else in the business who perhaps has never seen a particular project before, and can pick up a manual or pick up where you left off or whatever else, and be able to continue with that project seamlessly. And I think that's been important for us, particularly with the online stuff. It's been a little, that role for us has been a little sort of, what's the word?
Contentious?
Yeah, it has. It's been a little contentious and a little sort of transigent as well, like as we've found the right people to do the role. And so, we've certainly really had to put processes in place, particularly for that online business, because it is so different to what we know and what we do, and it's even foreign to us. So, it's not absolutely mission critical, but I think it's been important for us. Yeah.
How about you, Tom?
Yeah, 100% correct. I believe that if you have 5 years in business and you really concentrate on systems and processes, you can then step back and the business can run itself. I heard that off my old business coach when I first went about 3 years ago, and I'm 3 years in. I have everything in my business is documented to the T. As Mia mentioned, that if you do step away or you want to go on a holiday, somebody has to be able to pick that up. But for me, 5 years' time, I want to be able to completely step back. And whether that's step back and start another business or do something else or hang out with family and friends. But 2 years' time down the track, it will be that systemised that I will be able to kind of step back and walk away. And I think that's what business is about. So, yeah.
Awesome. So, guys, does anybody out there have a question for us this evening? Yes, lady at the back. We've got the microphone to go around as well. So,
which one should I ask first? But maybe one for you about when you work in partnership with someone, and you've been in business together for a few years, and then you see that there's of how each of your vision is for the business. It's not sort of aligning, and you have a different pace of how much you want to grow. Somebody else may have a different pace. How do you go about aligning yourself? And practically, it would be good if you could share a specific example of where you had that misalignment and how you decided how to go about getting on the same page.
I think really for us it's most of the time we've been pretty aligned, despite the fact that it's been 13 years. We've pretty much had the same vision and wanted to get to the same place. So it's been okay. More recently, I think we've started to think about, because I'm getting a little older and Mia's at a different stage of life, whether or not we want to do other things or how we want to make that role. But really, comes back to communication. We just really sat down and spoke about it, and it took us a few hours, but then we just came up with a position that we thought we both liked, and we just sort of moved on. We just continued. So in terms of specifics, it's really just deciding what was common about what we wanted to do, and we just decided to keep going along those lines.
Yeah, I think just to add to that as well, I think when we first started the business, we talked about obviously what we wanted long term, but we talked a lot about values and our own personal values. And even from day one, even though we're very different people and we're at very different stages of our lives and have been throughout the entire journey of the business, our values have been aligned. So I think we fundamentally share the same values, and I think we're quite good at checking in with each other frequently. So I think that example of the most recent example where we sort of talked about, all right, well, where to, and do you want to be doing this in 5 years, and that having that kind of chat. It's really just always been about communication, and we do check in with each other quite frequently to say, hey, are we still on the same page? And I think we've been quite fortunate that we have been. It definitely could have gone either way, but I think we've just been lucky that we've really always been aligned. But I do put it down to communication.
Tom, anything to add for that one? Alignment?
Yeah, I've got something, because I've got two partners, and what was really great for us, I don't know how you're kind of looking into the future or what strategy you use, but we call it the road to Oz. You have to agree on what Oz is. So what is that dreamland that you want to get to? What is the dream state? And on that road is a winding road with yellow bricks. And it might be 10 million here, 100 staff here, whatever that is. If you are not agreeing on what Oz is, that is going to cause some sort of conflict along the journey to getting there, because you're not going to get and step on those bricks as fast or as you should. Okay, so that's my 2 cents. Yeah.
And then gentleman in the middle there.
Yeah, I had a question for you, Simon. You talked very early about getting a coach, business coach. I'm curious how that came about, who suggested it, or what the idea was, how you found that coach, how you work with them, and whether that's something you continue with. Because I know a lot of startup founders don't necessarily talk about that. They may talk about having a mentor, but it sounds like you've really pulled into that process. I'm just curious how it works for you.
Yeah, great question. As I mentioned earlier, when I kind of was burnt out, the 12-hour days, no money in the bank, I needed to reach out, and I started with a friend of mine who is a member of Entrepreneurs Organisation currently, and I went there with my tail between my legs, and I said, what do I do? Do I? And he just said, business is the golden goose. All you have to concentrate on now is the business. And he said, I'm going to give you somebody's phone number. And I went and spoke to this person, and I said, how do you do it? It's Dave from Portavac. He's got a nationwide gutter cleaning and roof restoration business similar to mine. He said, I've been through a lot of bad coaches, and he gave me the number to a really good coach. So you have to reach out, and you have to get that training. I don't have a mentor, but the coaching for me worked absolutely unbelievable, coming from a trade-based background where my knowledge was, I was a good plumber, but being a good plumber is not going to get you where you need to go. As I mentioned before, the information's out there. So reach out, you can come and talk to me, I'll be here after, or reach out to some of your peers or people you know, because the answers are out there and the information you want is there. But highly recommend it. It was life-changing for me. I always talk about on a business side and a personal side. Not only did the business go up, but my personal well-being just went through the roof when you start to build something truly amazing and everything starts to come together. But without the knowledge, without the coaching, I never would have got there. So my only regret is I didn't reach out earlier. Okay, there.
Thanks, Tom. Cool. And the lady on the end there?
Hi, I just have a question regarding the website. Both of you commented that you've had issues with building your websites. So do you have any comments or any suggestions on how to go about finding the right solution, finding the right resource to build the website? Because being present on the internet is basically the norm now, rather than just brick and mortar. So that's quite crucial to expand your business, not just nationally but internationally as well.
Yeah, unfortunately for us, it was a bit of trial and error, and again, sort of not. We come from marketing backgrounds, so we're sort of learning tech along the way. I guess we find that it's changed. I think one of the challenges is that it's changing so rapidly, and so again, now being in the third iteration of our website, we're currently on the Magento platform, and we've been through others. At the time when we first launched Moxie Box Club, it was actually a few years ago, and it was on a much more basic platform that at the time did what we needed it to do, but it became redundant very quickly. And it's a little hard to kind of, crystal ball the future of what your online business is going to look like. Like, you might have an ideal, but that ideal might cost 150 grand, which may be a little too ambitious when you're just starting to pump that money into it if you don't know how it's going to go. So I'm not quite sure I can really answer the question, unfortunately. I think all I can say is, and further to something we presented earlier, was timing. I think yes, you can think ahead, but perhaps only to a point with online, because I think, as I said, systems, processes, etc., not necessarily become just redundant, but evolve really, really rapidly, and you just kind of have to stay on top of it. And I just think having professionals that really understand the space and what you want to achieve and what your goals are is crucial. But even from my perspective as a business owner, further to what Tom said, understanding it yourself is critical, because the first 2 times we had the wool pulled over our eyes completely. I ended up in VCAT. It was ridiculous. And you just hemorrhage money, basically. So I think trying to educate yourself is really important.
I think the reason I didn't answer that in the first instance is because I don't think we've got an answer. The answer I've come up with so far is that that's the most frustrating thing I've ever been involved in, and as soon as you think you've got the answer, it changes. So you go through the process of learning about it and coming up with this is the right direction, and then within 6 months it's all changed. So that's what I've found about it, and that's, in terms of giving you advice on how to do that, I don't think I can. So that's why I'm a little, that whole area is just difficult.
Maybe actually, I was just going to say, sorry. Yeah, just quickly, if anything, just based on our experience, I'd say perhaps, as they say, the saying goes, shoot bullets before you fire cannons. So maybe just sort of dip your toe in the water a little bit and, use basic test sites and test out your model, test out your proposition before you go the full hog and you go and you drop that $100,000 on the site. Perhaps just think about how you can do it low scale to see if it works before you really invest. I'm
kind of gathering that you haven't started building it yet, or you're in the process?
Not yet. We're still looking for the right.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. So I've made the huge mistakes as well. So what I did last time was I just went to the market and see what the industry leaders were doing. So what are the top, what online presence, what is the best of the best doing? And I said, they're ranking, at the top of the organic rankings, their site's unbelievable, it's mobile friendly. And I just went to somebody and said, I'll start with that one. And they built us a similar site, but I said, make sure it's 10 times better. And it is. And now ours is by far the best, but start with the competitors and who's at the top, yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions out there? Anybody? No? Excellent. So I asked Tom this question before, which, you know, if he could go back in time and tell himself one thing, what would it be? So maybe that same question for you two.
Oh, jeez.
What would we say?
Oh, well.
You got one? Go.
Oh, well, like, don't bloody go to the UK. Like, that's
Yeah,
Not even
That's
for a
a
holiday.
minefield.
that was an easy one.
I mean, it was just way too premature. And I just think we jumped the gun, and we see it now with clients that people very quickly, or, you know, in the early days, they're thinking about scale. And we want to scale, and we want to grow, and we want to do this. And I'm like, that's awesome, but get the model right first. Get the business right. Get the core of the business right. Get your margins right, and then think about expansion, because again, it's just super easy to hemorrhage money. I mean, in the UK, not only did we encounter the GFC, but we encountered some really dodgy suppliers. We had a warehouse over there who was holding our stock, a third-party warehouse, and they lost nearly $500,000 worth of stock. Lost nearly $500,000 worth of stock, and that really hurt us. It was really, really difficult to recover it. So yeah, I'd probably say, Mia, cool your jets, take it slow. It'll happen when the time's right. Don't rush it.
Jeff?
Well, that's definitely a big one, and it's obviously resonated for us over the time. Probably, I think our initial years we acted more like big corporate marketers that had small budgets, because we were used to big corporate marketers who had big budgets, and so we tried to replicate that sort of activity with smaller budgets. But there's much more entrepreneurial ways of getting things done, particularly now with a lot of online activity, a lot of social media existing, because when we started, none of that existed. It was all still traditional media and those sorts of things. As Mia alluded to before, there's a lot of ways of getting or doing things on a small scale to test them out these days, and getting data back and getting things done on social media just through pure creativity and things like that, other than just big budgets or trying to spend money. So I'd say that for me, it would be try and find ways of doing things without putting out a lot of money to do it.
Can I just have one small question? So it's related to the website. Now that you have a working website, something that you like, and you mentioned it's very difficult to drive traffic to your website. So how do you go about that? And just on that topic as well, I'm just curious, why didn't the Moxie platform work?
I'll clarify, it works. It's going well. It's just that
Website.
we've gone through it 3 different times. We kicked it off probably 3 years ago, as Mia said, on a much more simple website. Some of the things, platform. Some of the things we required it to do, we thought were little things, were massive things. And for argument's sake, it's a monthly subscription service, so you pay $30, but you can select 5 different items, any items you want. But that little mechanic is a massive deal. No website really does that. And so we had to build all that, and we built it using overseas suppliers, and then the thing didn't work properly. And then we got a local supplier, and they didn't know what they were doing, and they told us they could, and then talk about timing, it took 12 months to go through that process with them building it, not being able to build it, and then not delivering it, and then us going to VCAT, and then all of that process, and then going back into it in a big way with a proper platform and building it right, but having to do all that again. So all that back end stuff, and then you get to the end of that, and now what we built it on is a little out of date, and there's a new one, and we should be probably considering going to that. So that's version 4. So that's the minefield I'm talking about. So I'm sorry. What was?
Traffic.
Oh,
yeah.
That's your department.
That's an awesome question. Does anyone know? I mean, look, I think we're fortunate in that we have had a really successful bricks and mortar business for, like a decade before we went online. And so, people knew the brand and they know of the brand. And so we weren't necessarily starting completely flat-footed. Our loyalty is very high, so people do seek Moxie out. For example, it's not at the store they're shopping at, they will go elsewhere. Online is a bit more challenging because people don't traditionally, well, I think these days actually people do expect to be able to find things online, but it's not where they would typically shop for this product. So we do rely mostly like on our social platforms, and again, I don't think we've cracked it, but pretty basic kind of, your SEO, SEM, retargeting, all that kind of stuff. We're still dabbling with it. Again, I think that changes really rapidly. Even for us, what worked this week might completely tank next week. And so again, I think you've just got to be on it literally 24/7 all the time. And we do, a lot of split testing and stuff like that is really good. Yeah. Search terms, all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, driving traffic to your website, it's the vein of our business. So without it, we go under. So as I mentioned before, we've really struggled with it. Probably over the last 12 months, we've really turned it around, and now we do it in-house. And I've got full-time staff in other countries doing it for us. I'll give you a tip though, which I wish I had have done. So for us, we have to pay to get people to our website. We market online. We do Instagram, Facebook, SEO, SEM, all the different avenues. But if you are going to spend money, what I used to throw, just say $5,000 at something, and then I would just sit back and hope it worked. But testing and measuring. So if you put $200 into something, and if the leads are coming in, you have to log where the leads are coming from, and you have to find out what does the lead cost and what does it cost to acquire a customer. And once you get good at test and measuring, everything opens up, because you'll pull money out of something else and put it into something that's working. Okay, but as Mia said, I like to say I like to have 10 avenues open at a time to draw people to the website. So marketing, signage, SEM, there's so many, but test and measure is the key for us. So.
Cool. Guys, we're coming towards the end, so is there maybe one or two questions out there before I kind of round it off? No? Yes, lady? Yeah.
It's more on your personal development. Like I've been running our business for 11 years, and sometimes you wonder that the person that you are now and what it takes to run the business at the stage where it is, how evolved are you to take up to that challenge? How do you go about your own personal development, like managing a team of 10 to managing a team of 40 to managing, so the personal growth and getting out of that comfort. Again, how do you go about? Do you have some resources, people? Of course, business coach really helps, and had one right from day one, and different coaches at different stages. But can you share something more about, things that you are doing today that you would never have done 3 years ago?
You're both looking at me.
She was looking at you.
The lady was looking at
I think I've always been very conscious of keeping myself open to learning, regardless of where I am in business. I mean, I started as a student and I really knew nothing. And arguably, I would still say that now, even 13 years in, I still know nothing. And I'm really good with that, because it means that I'm constantly pushing myself and challenging myself. I don't for a second think that I know everything, because I fear that the minute that you sort of get into that headspace, that's when disruptors, come in. And so for me, I'm always learning, and I really believe you can learn from anywhere and anyone. I don't think that it's necessarily, a super successful business owner that's got all the answers. You can just learn from anyone that you meet. So, I learn a heap from even the schoolgirls that I visit. Like, some of the questions that they ask are so thought-provoking, and I just think, I've learnt more from you than you have from me doing the talking. So I think just being open and just being open, because learning is everywhere. Further to what Tom had mentioned, EO, Entrepreneurs Organisation. So Jeff and I are no longer in it, but we were in EO for 6 years, and I'd always kind of steered clear of organisations and even events like that, because networking kind of didn't really sit well with me, and it still really doesn't. It's a bit of a funny. It can put you in a funny situation where I feel like people ask you a lot of questions and want to know everything about you and ask, really personal questions from the get-go. but then tell you nothing about themselves. And I don't feel like that's actually valuable learning. Whereas EO is all about peer-to-peer learning and experience sharing. So it's not about giving opinions. So even now when I speak to people and I meet people, I try and speak from experience, and I find that that's what I get back, and that's how I actually learn the most. So just, yeah, talking to people, whether it's business people or, you know, anyone in any sort of walk of life from anywhere, just being really, really open to it. Nothing super formal for me at the moment, but yeah, as I said, was in EO for 6 years. Yeah, and I did learn a lot.
Question.
What do you do to develop? What do you do to develop yourself? And
Yeah, I think that was good enough. Yeah, that was good. Professional development. Yeah, I agree with me.
Did that answer the question? Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
cool.
Okay, guys, we actually have to leave it there. I think we're coming to the end because of the network outage that we've got in the next couple of minutes, so the mics will actually go off as well. So, guys, I'd like to thank you all for your wonderful questions. So if it wasn't for that, then we wouldn't get as much out of it as everybody else has asked some fab questions. So can we have a round of applause for our guest speakers this evening as well? Mia and Jeff of Moxie, and Tom of Harley Sons. So thank you very much, guys.